Yannis Moati is founder and CEO of Hotels by Day, and
Mhm.
excited to hear about the last mile in real estate. So,
That's right. That's right. Jonathan, thank you very much for the introduction. Without further ado, let me share my screen. However, I would like to say that, being a little bit of a marketeer and being, I guess it's a professional deformation in the last 5 years as CEO of Hotels by Day, um, I realized that my slides were getting a little bit too much about Hotels by Day. So I thought about having a conversation with you all, sharing just a landing page to tell you that Hotels by Day exist and why we are talking today about hotels being the last mile of real estate. First, I'd like to give you a quick intro on myself and the origin story of the company that we've launched 5, 6 years ago. I'm Tunisian by birth, and I've been in America now most of my professional life. I was a travel agent and a tour operator, being that I lived always in different cultures between Europe and North Africa and the United States. Travel was a natural extension of my lifestyle. And so I moved to become a travel agent, and then I became a tour operator, setting up trips to Europe for Americans that wanted to travel and also Europeans that wanted to come here. And increasingly, in my professional experience, I realized that we were facing somewhat of an issue in hospitality. Essentially, hospitality was becoming inhospitable. And let me tell you why. The light bulb moment came in when I was increasingly asking for flexibility in check-in, check-outs at the hotels that we were booking for our VIP guests. They come in, they land at 7 a.m. and they'd like to have their room right away ready to be able to check in into. And it was hard to do that. Even with the hotels that we used to send hundreds of reservations to, we just couldn't guarantee an early check-in or a late checkout. One day I talked to a general manager and was like, you got to help me out. We send hundreds of bookings to you. Is it possible that in your 265 rooms or 265 keys, you cannot find a room in which you can grant me a little bit more flexibility? And his response was very telling. He said, Yannis, it's not a question of inventory. It's a question that I don't have the technology. I don't have the protocol to be able to absorb flexibility without disrupting my overnight plans and my overnight stays. And that's where I realized, oh my God, this is monumental. What he just told me is like, first I scratched my head. I was like, how is that possible that you're lacking the technology? And then I realized the size of the market, or the size of the opportunity rather, is monumental. And as a matter of fact, when you put into numbers, the size of the potential in being able to add flexibility at hotels is $100 billion globally annually. $100 billion essentially is not being monetized properly at hotels. Why? Because 40% of their inventory is being left idle throughout the day and is not being monetized. So we launched Hotels by Day in 2015 with one aim or rather one single aim, which was to be able to provide the flexibility next to airports. We launched it with 12 hotels. We now have over 2,000 hotels on the platform, and it's accelerating really quickly, especially post-COVID. But essentially, the macro trend is this. The more we grew in the life of the company and the more hotels that we onboarded, we realized that as a marketplace, we were solving two issues. One is that we were living in an increasingly dynamic society that lives on demand, everything that is used to everything about ourselves whenever we want it, according to our agenda, whatever, we get it, through any sort of platform, any sort of technology, we basically get what we want whenever we want. But yet with hospitality, we cannot. And so when you saw that the sharing economy was passing by the hotels, right? They got their lunch eaten by Airbnb and the likes of Airbnb. When you saw that the on-demand model that we were increasingly living in, hotels were not tapping into it because, again, it's a very strict check-in time at 3 p.m. You must leave the next day at 11 a.m. Otherwise, you're going to be penalized. So looking at the trends out there, we realized that there's something that could have been done. What we thought was essentially at airport at first, and then we grew from it, because COVID essentially has accelerated all those constellations of all those pain points that hotels are not solving. Essentially, think about future of work as another macro trend. We are now more digital nomads than ever, right? We're working from anywhere. As a matter of fact, today I'm running this conference from Mexico. We're usually based in New York, but the team has been dispersed from California to Spain for the last year and a half. So we're now more flexible. We're more spread out. We want shorter commutes if we were to commute ever, possibly canceling it altogether if we can. There's housing imbalances between urban centers being too costly and suburbans that now also are rising in cost because of COVID. And we are looking for a place of refuge more and more, something on demand, as I mentioned before, but also that gives you not just for the work, but that gives you the lifestyle aspect of it. A place that you can work in privacy, meet in privacy, shower, change, take a nap, recharge, or what we also call in the industry as a daycation, which is essentially you're taking the day off to be able to just enjoy and take it for yourself. And when you look at all the real estate out there that can satisfy the macro trend of what society and modern society wants, at least to us, there's undeniability on the fact that hotels are the sole, exclusive, and prime real estate that can absorb both work and lifestyle together. And that's why we call this short presentation here as the last mile of real estate. Because we are accustomed to commercial real estate satisfying all the work needs that you want. Strong Wi-Fi, ergonomical chairs and desks for you to work from, whether it be a rigid office setup or more co-working in which it's flexible, and nowadays in which you can sit anywhere or you can feel like you can go anywhere. And so commercial real estate is set up for work. Residential real estate is mostly set up for living and sleeping and etc. But a mix of both is solely to be found at hotels. And so when you understand that nowadays, the modern generations, the new labor force coming in that is digitally savvy, that everything has it on their phone, that orders everything on demand, that wants everything according to their needs. The hotel is the natural extension. It's the only real estate as a natural extension to the lifestyle that they live. They don't want to go, I'm a Generation Xer. And I think we might be the last generation that was growing up into somewhat of a strict and rigid work structure, right? We commuted for the last 30 years back and forth between our home and our work, but this is fading away. And so think about the future in which hotels can recapture the lost business that they have lost against Airbnb. They can recapture the flexibility of time in which they have been completely bypassed by. They can recapture even the co-working loss of ground, the WeWork. As a parenthesis, when you hear all the major CEO, the leading CEOs of hospitality, they often say that in their core, they've got hospitality. That's why they're so differentiated from WeWork or another one. And yet hospitality is not doing anything about it, right? And they have the work protocols. They have, every room has an ergonomical chair and desk and strong Wi-Fi and strong coffee, even if you want to. Not just the room, but also the meeting rooms. The ballroom can be retrofitted into co-working desks, the lobbies as well. So they have so much potential. And what they essentially are missing is two things, or possibly three. The technology, and going back to the point of Robert, where everybody resists change these days. And I can vouch to that hotels have a very rigid structure and a natural ability to resist change, unfortunately. But what they're missing is technology. What they're missing is set up their protocols differently, and the willing to be able to do that. And as I mentioned before, COVID is changing that dynamic, because for the very first time, hotels that understood previous to COVID that they could do things differently, they realized that the emperor has no clothes. They are left with all of their bookings got canceled, all of their overnight stays and all of their tourists have canceled for the foreseeable future, at least a year and a half ago. Now they have to deal with actually the opposite scenario, which is also very disrupting to their business models. And so they finally understood that we need to do things different, because the absorption of space and time, or the processing rather of space and time, needs to be different. And so to conclude, I don't know if I've actually, I forgot to mark my time, but my apologies. But to conclude, HotelsByDay is gradually working step by step to solve the pain point of a hotelier and to provide different experiences to the consumer out there that wants that flexibility and that sorely misses it from the versatility of real estate, right? Because if you're a member at a co-working space, or if you're a staff member of a large or small company, but if you have an office or if you have a home somewhere and you feel like you're a little bit stuck, you don't have another solution. But we are trying to solve that problem. And by the way, regardless whether it be HotelsByDay or the other startups in the field, because there's some European players and some Latin American players, and everybody's understanding that something needs to be done. We are the leading North American player, and we are growing by leaps and bounds. It was really hard the first 3 years, I have to admit, but now there's an acceleration pace that is undeniable. And we are about to sign our very first branded agreement with one of the top 5 largest brands out there that has hotels from New York to Shanghai, and that understands that we are here to provide a window to the future of how to manage space and time. And so with that, I'd like to conclude, and I'm open to any question that anybody may have. And here are my contact details. Yannis Moati, founder, CEO, and it's Yannis at HotelsByDay.com. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Yannis. This is a fascinating field, one that I think every traveler has run into, getting off a plane just too early to check in, or a ferry or whatever. And this solution is really a fascinating one in that the way the hotel industry has been for so long, you're really disrupting that. Um, where do you see kind of the next 5 years? You touched on how the hotel industry, because of COVID, is really seeing this transformation in, as you said, it's not an inventory problem, it's really a software solution almost problem. But in the next 5 years, because of kind of what's happened with COVID, where do you see this industry kind of really going in this space?
Well, we see it squarely as ourselves hitting the mark of where the future needs to be in. Essentially, uh, look at a 24-hour cycle and how the hotel industry is really good at optimizing their real estate for about a 10-hour time window. You know, they tell you, which is the night stay, by the way. So they tell you, you know, it should be from the check-in time of 3 p.m. to the checkout time the next day at 11. That's on paper, but in reality, they've got about 40% of their guests that check out before 9 a.m. They get another 35% on average in North America, again, in major urban centers. I'm not talking about Miami, which is a little bit more leisure, but in urban business centers, another 35% will not check in prior to 7 or 8 p.m. So essentially let's just simply state that from 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. is where the night stay customer is. And on average, a guest that spends the night spends it 1.2 nights at the hotel. So it's a very, touch in, touch out, touch and go. I don't know exactly what the expression is, but it's a very limited experience of the full potential that the hotel provides. You know, they're providing pools, they're providing spa, they're providing meeting rooms, they're providing, you know, all sorts of bars and restaurants and event spaces and all, but most customers barely touch on it. I'm sure we in this conference, every attendees to this conference can remember the last time that they went into a hotel previous to COVID. You know, we felt like, oh gosh, I'd love to experience that, but you know, we didn't have the time because we went to the city for another agenda than just experiencing the hotel, right? And so here they are doing a really good business and a really efficient business of running their night stay, but then most of the clock is idle inventory, is being completely unused. And so what we are unlocking for them is also a complimentary guest. You see, most of the guests that book a day stay versus a night stay is a guest that lives within a certain vicinity of the hotel. And so to essentially answer your question, I will paraphrase the CEO of Accor Hotels, which is the largest European chain, and I think it's the number 4 in the world. His name is Sebastian Bazen, and Sebastian once said, we need to rethink how a hotel works. And for the simple reason that it's simple math. There's 7 billion people on this planet, and there's only 2 billion that travel. The other 5 don't. So therefore, and to paraphrase him, my hotels are only catering to the small portion of the population. We need to do something else. So he was essentially saying how his hotels need to be a center for its community. Provide restaurant service, flower services. If you want to leave your keys to your friends that will come and stay at your apartment, you can use our front desk staff to do that. So essentially, hotels need to reinvent themselves, not just be a bubble for foreigners and tourists to come into that city, but essentially to allow themselves to be open to the community and to their neighbors. And so that's essentially, again, not without mentioning our company and what we do. This is what the industry is leading itself towards.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for that response. It's definitely something, that is a need, for every traveler. We've all experienced it. And so that's amazing and
Definitely.
exciting to, yeah, see where that goes. So real quick, a follow up to that. Have you seen a difference in the mentality between kind of the industry and the way it's working in North America versus Europe? My wife's family is from Naples, Italy, and so we travel quite frequently. And it's a very different mindset in many ways, obviously. But so is there a difference in how you're approaching North America and Europe, or are they kind of on the same wavelength in terms of hotels?
Hey, listen, being a New Yorker, at this point, I'm a New Yorker. I've been living 15 years and I haven't moved during COVID. So I feel like I'm a turbocharged New Yorker. If you tell me about Naples, I would tell you the way that we approach the Neapolitan hotels versus the American hotels is that we comfort the Neapolitans saying they get better pizza. No worry, don't worry, don't worry. Better pizza than. No, so to be serious, it's a very good question. When we first launched our company, we thought that there was a prudish aspect to the American hotelier. The way that they run this business is that, unfortunately, a day stay has a little bit of a resonance and a little bit of a legacy to it, which was, an hourly motel, romance-oriented type of demand. And so, there was a knee-jerk reaction in the first years that we launched the company in thinking that we were just made for that, without essentially understanding the bigger picture out there that we live in a, on-demand society in which everything needs to be flexible now. There's just no escaping it. And so we thought at first that the American hoteliers were more prudish and more, that goes with a little bit of the reputation that, America is a little bit more guarded towards, romance, maybe in so many ways, and that Europeans are a little bit more frivolous, maybe a little bit more open. They do things without, without batting an eye. Affairs are open, open stories over there. So we thought that essentially Europe was going to be more open to it. And then we realized it has nothing to do with the cultural aspect. It has to do with essentially the business aspect of it, and how, hotels are rigid. They're very structured. We first launched saying we're the Uber of hospitality, right? Where you can buy the hourly stay that you want. Well, not technically, not hour per hour, but more on a packs of hours and packages of hours. So that's how we started promoting ourselves. And then we realized, no, it has nothing to do with Uber, because essentially a hotel has many layers of structure and decision-making, right? And so it goes with the operation team, the sales marketing team, the revenue management team, the executive team, and then that's just on property. And then on top of it, you've got the corporate executive teams that also have to decide. So that happens in Europe as much as it happens in America, to answer your question. And there's resistance to that change.
Okay, awesome. Well, Yannis, thank you so much. Appreciate an amazing presentation and your work in the field, and wishing you all the best. And thanks for being a part of the conference today.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you very much, everybody, for listening in. And thanks for your invitation. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.